Welcome into the Prime Cut Podcast, a movie discussion show aimed at recommending deep cuts, flawed gems, and forgotten masterpieces. I'm Joe.
I'm Greg.
You can follow us on Instagram, prime_cut_podcast. Got to keep those underscores in there. Or send us an email or I guess I should say, at primecutpodcast@gmail.com. We've gotten a couple of listener recommendations for movies. True Romance was actually Greg's recommendation at one time when he was just a small listener before he took the plunge into the big leagues as now a co-host. So if you shoot out some stuff, some comments, feedback, that's what we're wanting to hear, and we want interactions, kind of some of the things that we're looking for with that. Please remember to rate, review, follow, like, subscribe on all your podcast apps. That helps us stay relevant, especially when people search for podcast episodes about movies. We're looking for any sort of interaction when it comes to those things.
Joe,
Greg,
these people are recommending things to me like crazy. They're hitting up my inbox. They're blowing me up. They're telling me these movies. I'm getting things like, I don't know. I got raked over the coals by my friend Milton because I had never seen Conan.
Justifiable. Milton, good call. I'm glad you called him out. Yes. Did you watch it?
No, I haven't watched it yet, but yeah, I will. I'm going to, and I'm not. That's not just a. Hey man, yeah, I'll watch it. I'll add it to the list. No, I actually keep a list. I actually do watch them.
I know you do. You're studious. You're studious.
Yeah.
But, so you're getting interaction. Good. We want
it. People are recommending some things, and really, I just want people to like, follow, subscribe, so that this will blow up, and I can act like I don't know nobody. And then I could just stop working and live off the podcast.
That's the dream. That's right. Yeah. Greg, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about this exquisite masterpiece. I can't say it with a straight face.
Stop it.
You love this movie.
I love it.
You love this movie, and I know you're very passionate about it, but I don't know if this holds up. But we're talking about The Crow.
From 1993. That's right. This is a tragic movie.
Yeah.
Both in reality and in parts of the film. We're going to talk about those things. Brandon Lee, obviously the star of this movie, son of Bruce Lee, died on the set, was killed on the set by a accidental, or I guess not accidental, but like a discharge of a firearm that was just like not properly, safety precautions were not properly conducted, ended up killing him, which we're going to discuss. It's directed by this guy, Alex Proyas, who I know who that is, but he hasn't directed a lot. He's done some other things. I think this is his best work. But we're going to talk about all those things. And really, I think before we get into the movie, I want to talk really quick, recent watches. Have you been watching anything movie-wise that you want to talk about?
Man, all week, all of my efforts have just been focused around this movie, The Crow. Wow. And it goes deep. It goes deep.
Okay. I appreciate that. I watched the new Roadhouse, Greg.
Oh, you mean with Connor McNuggets?
He's the worst person who's ever acted in a movie, I think.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He's so bad. And I like Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's trying, and there's some things that he does that work, but this is a bad movie. It's a bad remake.
I've seen reviews and people that I know. Look, you can't do remakes. All right. Well, let me take that back. You can do a remake if the movie is really, really old. Yes. When I say really old, I mean like maybe 40 or 50 years.
Yeah, you can do or it's bad, right? Or if it's like, hey, the original sucked, but there's something here. Let's reimagine it.
Maybe. But that one, Roadhouse, people love that movie.
It's good. I rewatched the old Roadhouse, and it's good. It's good.
Roadhouse is a movie that the culmination leads up to a fight scene of our bad guy at the very end saying, I used to fuck guys like you in prison. And you go, yeah, wait, what?
Yeah, and then he gets his throat ripped out.
And then he gets his
Awesome.
throat. Sorry, so spoiler alert for the
Spoilers
original
for a
Roadhouse.
1989 movie. This movie like gets rid of a lot of stuff that was cool. I liked the stuff in the first movie where like Patrick Swayze's like a professional, like he's called a cooler. He's not a bouncer, and he like has a system. This is Jake Gyllenhaal is like a
Is
former
that a real
UFC
thing?
fighter.
Is that
I don't.
really
I mean, there's like a head bouncer. I know that. I used to work in
okay?
bars, but I don't know if it's like. I mean, they made it sound like there was like a union and like a, like a like a contract labor thing set up between these coolers and bouncers. I don't think it's quite like that. Jake Gyllenhaal is like he's just like a tough guy, like a former UFC fighter. It's not good. It's bad. It's bad.
I saw an interview with Jake Gyllenhaal about this movie, and he's basically talking. The interviewer, I have no idea why they would even ask this question. This question is just dumb. They ask him something to the effect of, "Did you have to take any actual punches from Conor McGregor?" And he talks about, well, there was one night where he accidentally hit me and almost knocked me out. I was like, oh, come on, come off it, Jake
Rough.
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, and I like Jake G, but it's bad. So you can watch it. It's like background noise, I guess, if you're like vacuuming or like folding your laundry, you want something on, maybe throw that on, but it's not very good.
Leave Swayze alone. It's like when they redid what's the other movie that he did with that you did on Prime Cut?
Point Break.
Point Break. They redid that one and it was like a Mountain Dew commercial. Just leave
Sucked.
Swayze movies alone.
Won't see it. Haven't seen it, won't see it.
Oh, I put it on and it was I was more distracted by vacuuming than watching the movie. It was
much like the sequels and the remake of this movie that we're going to talk about today. I refuse. I refuse.
I've seen them.
Well, all right. There might be some insight there. So, all right. The Crow, 1994, directed by Alex Proyas. It stars Brandon Lee. It's 102 minutes long. It's about right at like an hour and 40 minutes. Its budget was like $18 million and it made almost 100 million. So it's a pretty big hit. Now, some of that might be because morbidly, I'm assuming some folks were interested in seeing a movie where the star was killed during filming. I don't know. It's definitely like a cult classic, though. I think a cult movie for sure.
100%. People still, I listen. You know how I got with my research, and I joined Facebook groups. I went to Reddit.
Wow.
I infiltrated the Crow people.
I wasn't on those.
Listen, there's people to this day that are still dressing up as the Crow for cosplay. There's people that are getting horrible Crow tattoos.
I believe it. Dude, Sting, the WCW wrestler, and you're a wrestler guy.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the Crow for like 20 years?
He says that he wasn't. He tried to say that wasn't where it came from, but that's let's call water wet. He stole that idea from there.
Yeah.
And he acted all moody, like an angsty teenager, and was wearing the trench coat, and he had the face paint, and he grew the hair out. It's like, dude, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's not a chicken.
It's true. Very, very true. So, okay, what is your experience with this movie prior to this podcast, like prior to the rewatch? Did you have any lineage here? Is there any legacy for you as like a kid with it or anything like that?
You know, I know that I have people in my life that love this movie, and you're one of them. I mean, you own T-shirts of this movie.
Two.
Yeah, not just one. He needs people to know.
I'll add. If there's a good one, I'll buy it.
You know, it's like, hey, I got to go out this weekend. I need people on Saturday and Sunday to know I'm into the Crow.
Maybe I don't see the same people.
Maybe it's different people. What if it is the same people?
They'll know that I'm just really into it.
Yes. Anyways, so every now and then I've seen it over the years. I can't remember the last time I saw it. My first exposure to this movie was probably when I was in 6th grade. This was mid-90s. A friend of mine was into it because if you grew up in the 90s, you were into dark, moody music and you were into grunge. And that's a whole other topic of this movie.
And we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Great soundtrack.
So that was my first exposure to this movie. And so it's much like a movie that just won't go away. It just stays. Even
Stop
if you
it.
don't want,
That sounds derogatory.
even if you don't want to watch it, even if you want it to disappear, everyone around you is going to keep it alive.
I mean, so I'm going to give you my background with this movie, but part of the reason we're doing this is because number one, I love this movie. Number two, did you know that I love this movie, Greg?
Yeah, you do.
Okay. There's a remake 30 years after this movie that is going to be released this summer. The trailer has come out. It stars what's his name? Bill Skarsgård and a person who has initials for a name. FKA Twigs is the girl. I don't know who that person is. I am 40 years old, so that is probably part of the reason why I don't know what that means. And I don't want to like go too far because, you know, I don't want to be one of those people that like when Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker, people are like, you put the 10 things I hate about you guy as the Joker, and he's incredible as the Joker, the best Joker. So I don't want to like paint myself too much with that brush, but this trailer doesn't look like this movie. I saw it and was revolted and angry. And so I wanted to strike back. And that's part of the reason that we're talking.
You know, every movie after this one, because there's
a bunch.
Sequels. There were sequels. There was even a TV show at one point.
3 or 4, I think. Yeah.
There was one that was basically made straight for TV.
Yep.
All hated.
And you know, Jason Momoa was like really attached for like years. It was like a passion project for him to like get it. There's like screen test footage. I saw pictures. I saw pictures of him in like the outfit and this paint, and it is like one thing about this movie is the surrounding, the things on the edges of this alone from standing alone from the movie. There's so much, and some of it is the tragedy of Brandon Lee's death, but then there's just like how it was made, the fact that, you know, we're going to talk about the comic and the creator of the comic, the soundtrack, all of these things that are kind of like being thrown into this big stew of The Crow. And some of that stuff is almost more interesting than the movie. I will admit that. I was like transfixed by some stuff. There's some crazy stuff here.
There's a lot to unpack here with this movie. And, you know, I thought about it for a minute. I was like, was this movie only popular because Brandon Lee died? Was this like
fair?
This happened in 94. I mean, this was basically 94 is like when everybody was fresh from Kurt Cobain.
Yep.
And then Nirvana was blowing up, and then grunge was huge. Then you got was the movie popular because he died, and then we compare it to Batman with Heath Ledger.
Sure.
I don't think that's the case because there's still a lot of other things that the movie actually does right and does cool. So yeah. I think it would have been successful even without that.
I think that's a good point. And I think you're right. I think it definitely adds to it. And it's kind of sad. I mean, I felt kind of sad. I haven't watched this movie in a long time. And at the end of it, there's like a dedication screen for him and his fiance. And I was like, oh,
what's a long time, Joe? Or like, you're a diehard fan.
Is this like years.
A month? 2 months?
No, a few years. I will say there are scenes in this movie that we're going to talk about that I YouTube regularly. Like,
oh, there's one scene in specific.
I have one.
Oh, we'll see if they line up. But there's one that I'm thinking of that when I saw it, I was like, that scene's badass.
Sick. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully it might be the same one. All right. So my experience with this movie, I think I come to this movie from a couple of different, like there's a couple strands connecting me to this. The first one is Brandon Lee being Bruce Lee's son. I was a huge Bruce Lee, and I guess I am a huge Bruce Lee guy. It's why I started doing, you know, Taekwondo when I was six or 7 years old, because of Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee and then his son, that whole thing really draws me in. You're right. The music, the soundtrack is great. I think it hit at a time where even though I had a great young adulthood, childhood, there is like a little bit of like angsty teenagerness that this movie, you identify with this guy a little bit, you know, like nobody understands me and I'm just alone here.
Right.
This movie is that Brandon Lee is very melodramatic at times, but I think for me, I am, and I want to get into him next, because as we usually do, we talk about our director, our star, our stars, and he's really the only star, although there's a bunch of like B movie actors that are from a ton of things that I can't wait to talk about. We're going to talk about kind of our director, our star, and the surrounding like movie landscape of 1994. And really, Brandon Lee, to me, is like, what he is one of these guys who he was never on the level of like Heath Ledger as an actor and didn't have the background. His resume wasn't nearly as deep. He only made, I think, 4 movies before this movie, but he is super, to me, extremely charismatic, a very handsome guy, believable in this role. And he's one of those actors, I think, that he kind of captures the screen when he's doing things. You are captivated by him at times, in this movie specifically, and in some of his other roles too. I've seen some of his other movies and I really like them. I don't know. What are your feelings about, and I want to talk about those movies. What are your feelings about Brandon Lee, just off the top of your head?
So I've seen some of his work before this, and it was basically, obviously, people wanted him to do martial arts. They wanted to see how far the apple fell from the tree from Bruce Lee.
And he's a lifelong martial artist. Let's make that clear. Right. He's trained at like 2 years old, his whole life.
I mean, how could you not? You're the son of Bruce Lee.
And to your point, what a weight to have to deal with, of being like the son of the most popular martial artist in modern life.
Yeah. It's like, no, Dad, I want to play football. I don't want to do martial arts.
Right. It's like, I don't think so. I even read an article that said at one time in his like early high school years, he basically was like, I don't want to train anymore. I want to like play soccer. I just want to your point, I want to get away from this crushing weight of expectation that's on me.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah. So am I off base here in saying that this guy seems like he had an awful lot of talent and it's such a tragedy that it's gone?
You know, he was supposed to do another movie. He had already signed a contract to do a movie after this. And the movie after this was not going to be anything to do with martial arts. I feel like he would have landed in the role of rom-coms, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. He's like a really personable, attractive guy who like has good rapport on screen with other actors. I think you're right. To me, he's like a pretty impressive actor.
Yeah, he would have impressive actor. He's charismatic for sure.
Good screen presence, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know that he had a lot of roles that allowed him to, disappear into characters. But to your point, I think that, yeah, there's a screen presence there. There's a movie. So he did a movie called, let's see, let's look at his filmography. It is not long. Legacy of Rage, I've seen. Laser Mission, I have not. Showdown in Little Tokyo, I've seen. Rapid Fire, I've seen, and obviously The Crow. Legacy of Rage is a Hong Kong action movie from 1986. It's pretty good, but it's like a heroic bloodshed, John Woo kind of rip-off action movie, but it's a Hong Kong movie and there's good action in it. Laser Mission, like I said, never seen it. Showdown in Little Tokyo is like crazy. It's like 75 minutes. Him and Dolph Lundgren, they're cops in LA. They're fighting the Yakuza. It's kind of good in like a schlocky, like action movie way.
It's really campy.
Yeah, super campy. Rapid Fire, Greg. I'm going to pontificate a little bit here.
That's why he got this role.
Okay. 1992 Rapid Fire. This is like a crime movie. He's like a college student who gets wrapped up in like a organized crime type of thing. He witnesses a murder and he ends up having to be involved. Straight ahead action movie, B action movie. Great fight scenes. And
super awesome fight scenes.
Like really good fight scenes.
Like there's one scene where a dude's walking down some stairs and he kicks through the banister.
Yes. It's awesome.
To kick the dude's legs. I was like, you could have just waited till he got to the bottom, but that was so much cooler.
No. So one of the things I really like about Rapid Fire, first of all, you can tell that he kind of pops off the screen in that. You're like, okay, this guy's got something here. Doesn't have a lot to work with as far as like the script, but he's cool and he's handsome. He's really jacked and his fight scenes are great. I'm a huge fight scene guy. I'm a martial arts movie guy. I will overlook bad. I will watch a D movie for if there's like an A fight scene in it. This is not that. Rapid Fire is like a B movie with A fights. But one of the things that I noticed in that movie compared to some of the more recent movies is you can tell that he is a good martial artist because in movies like The Bourne Identity and some of the more Hollywood based films where the fights are being done by an actor, they either quick cut or they don't show the actor doing everything because the actor can't, or they need a stunt performer to do it. In Rapid Fire, they don't do that. They basically put the camera on a wide shot and he is in the frame the entire time fighting everybody. There's no cuts, there's no camera movement. It is just like, this guy's good, he's going to fight this guy, that's it. And it works because he's really good. Anyway, so he gets the crow, and I almost think we should talk about, let's touch on the director, but then let's talk about we got to talk about the comic book and the guy who made the story is insane.
Well, seriously, Joe, you can go down a rabbit hole and it can go so deep if you go following the comics and you start following all the spin-offs and then the other movies and the series, and it's crazy. It's a lot.
So this movie is directed by this guy, Alex Proyas. He has not done a lot of movies.
I think he's most memorable for this and then I, Robot.
Yeah, and I, Robot's like not bad. I think it's okay.
I saw it once. That's how I felt about it.
It's fine. It's not objectionable. Dark City, I remember seeing, but don't remember much about it. That was his follow-up to this movie. Garage Days in 2002, I've never heard of that. I, Robot 2004, fine. Knowing 2009, that stars my guy Nick Cage. I have seen it. It's pretty good. Gods of Egypt, really bad.
Very bad.
That was his last movie. Real bad. Apparently he is doing, oh no, he did a couple of short movies. I thought he was doing one, but he didn't. So I don't know what he's doing. But I actually think there's some cool stuff that he does with this. There's a couple of shots that we're going to talk about. One in particular that is, I think, really good in this movie. And he's got like a interesting eye. He doesn't have a lot of money to do stuff in this movie that needs money. So there's some CGI that you can tell is like 90s stuff, but there's also some cool stuff that he does where you're like, oh, that could have looked worse, but he figured it out.
Yeah. Okay. So I was talking to, I've been talking to a lot of people about this movie because some people are people are passionate about this.
Good.
My friend AJ, he's like the angriest person I know on the planet. He doesn't even realize he's angry. When I was talking to him about it, basically he pointed out something to me that I hadn't realized. This movie shouldn't work on paper. It just doesn't work. There's lots of bad acting. It's got a weak story. It's got unearned friendships. It's got a lot of other issues, but basically it just adds in lots of cool parts and you go, I'll look over that. I'll accept this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Greg, you're watching movies the way I watch movies now. There is stuff that I accept. There are flaws.
It's got them. But
think about it.
Listen, all right, let's jump into this real quick because this is something that really is a selling point of this movie, and this is probably the best part of the movie, the soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
soundtrack of this movie. So I was trying to find movies that had good soundtracks before this. I couldn't find much. There's not a lot out there that existed where they were doing good music on soundtrack. Now, not only was it just a good soundtrack, sometimes movies will do a soundtrack where they're like, oh, we borrowed some songs from this artist or whatever. Bands recorded for this soundtrack.
Yes, that's a great point. There are movies before this that have scores that are good,
right?
Or that have like maybe once or like the one that I think about a lot is Thief from 1981. It's a Michael Mann movie. Tangerine Dream wrote the entire soundtrack. They also did that for Sorcerer, which is a William Friedkin movie in 1977. Paul and I love both those movies. That's like getting a composer to compose the score. What you're talking about is like they're going to The Cure and they're like, hey, would you write an original song for this movie? And The Cure is like, yes. And guess what? That song is great.
It's a good song. It's basically the song of the movie.
It's when he transforms. It's fucking awesome. You're right. This soundtrack has, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but just list off. It's like Rollins Band, Nine Inch Nails, The Cure, Stone Temple Pilots, Pantera. Who else is on this soundtrack?
Pantera isn't just on this album, Joe. Pantera is covering Poison Idea.
Wow.
That's cool. And that's
Next
a deep
level.
cut. Yeah. I feel confident and safe saying that there was probably never a hardcore song on a mainstream movie before this.
No, I completely agree with you, which is fucking sick. Rage Against the Machine is on the soundtrack.
Rage Against the Machine isn't just on the soundtrack, Joe. They're covering an Inside Out song.
Yeah. Yes.
That's Zach De La Rocha's band before Rage, which is another hardcore band.
Yep.
Super fucking cool.
Super fucking cool. Jesus and Mary Chain, Helmet, Violent Femmes. This soundtrack is great.
Soundtrack kicks ass.
It does.
Stone Temple Pilots is on it, and originally they had submitted a song for it, but the song I think referenced dying, and so they changed it at the last second.
And Big Empty is the song that they go with, which is a great STP song. And it's on it's in the movie, like on a car radio, and it makes sense.
Yeah. So Trent Reznor recorded that song for this, and then after this, I believe he went on to record the soundtrack for, or compose the soundtrack, or produce the soundtrack for Natural Born Killers. Yep. This was basically his gateway into that.
And now he's winning Oscars for Social Network and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, all the Ken Burns documentaries. Yeah.
This was the movie that opened the door for him to get into movies.
Sounds like you like this movie.
No, I don't.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard.
It's okay. If someone wants to watch it, I'll go. What are my choices? If I'm in a waiting room at a doctor's office and it's on, I'm watching it.
Please. So think about one of the things we try to do with Prime Cut is we kind of have like our definition of prime. What is Prime Cut, right?
Right. What is this movie, Joe?
Deep cut, flawed gem, forgotten masterpiece. For me, this is firmly a flawed gem.
I'll agree with that.
Okay. I don't think it's a deep cut because I think it's pretty widespread, kind of a cult movie. I do feel like it is flawed, but the gem, in flawed gems, you would underline flawed, and I would erase that underline, and I would underline gem. And it's not a forgotten masterpiece because it's not a masterpiece. So we've talked about our director briefly. We've talked about Brandon Lee, which we're going to touch on a lot because he really carries this movie. I think we probably need to look at, before we get into like the year, like 1994, what's going on, 93, 94. Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's do that first. And then we're going to talk about the comic and the creation of this comic and the writer, because that is just like a crazy backstory that I think needs some attention. Domestic box office for 1994. Let's take a look. Number one. Wow. 1 and 2, I could do 1, 2, and 4 and 5 are pretty shitty.
Is it the Flintstones?
That's number 5. The Lion King, maybe it's not shitty. There's a place for Lion King. It's not. I'm not into it, but okay.
The movie scarred me as a child.
I mean, Scar is pretty sick in it though. Jeremy Irons
kicks ass.
Jeremy Irons kicks ass. Forrest Gump. You know my feelings on Forrest Gump. Number 2. Not a fan.
You know, I feel like this is maybe the second or third podcast where you've expressed your disdain for Forrest Gump. Okay.
I don't like it. Number 3, True Lies. Kicks
Great
fucking
movie.
ass. Yes.
Awesome.
Really good. We should probably do that movie. It's James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold, like, that maybe is Arnold's like last great movie. It's real good.
It's good. I'll agree.
Number 5, The Flintstones. Yikes. Love the Flintstones comics, like the cartoon. Don't need to see anybody else do it. I don't need live action Flintstones. Thanks. It made
live action is never a great move.
It made $130 million, Greg.
That's because of the name.
Yeah. Clear and Present Danger, number 6. Kind of like it.
Good movie.
That's a pretty good movie. Speed, number 7. Kicks ass.
That was a monster movie that year.
Monster movie, $118 million. The Mask, number 8. I'm not that into it, but okay. Mrs. Doubtfire number 9. There's room for that. I don't know. I don't need to see it again.
Listen. House of Pain wouldn't be a band if it wasn't for Mrs. Doubtfire.
Speaking of soundtracks, okay. Interview with the Vampire: The Vampire Chronicles. Is that the Interview with the Vampire movie?
That's what I thought it was. Yes.
That's crazy. I didn't. Yeah, it is. I had no idea that there was a colon in that title.
Most people, I guess, didn't realize that it was such a long title. And, you know, at that point, it's like, can we just call it Interview with the Vampire? And they're like, no, must be with the Vampire
Gotta
Chronicles.
put the colon. Okay. 11 is Maverick, 94 million. Mel Gibson, card movie, West movie. Jodie
yes.
Foster.
That was basically Wild Wild West before.
Yeah. Schindler's List, number 12, 91 million. Masterpiece.
How is that number 12?
Because it's hard to watch.
Oh, that's a brutal movie.
Yeah. The Client, number 13, 90 million. I like The Client. Susan Sarandon, Tommy Lee Jones. It's a John Grisham. Pretty good. Philadelphia, number 14, 75 million. Tom Hanks wins his second Oscar in a row.
Isn't that Denzel as well?
Denzel. Yeah, Denzel. Love Denzel. Stargate, number 15. Love Stargate.
That spawned a whole franchise.
Yeah. Kurt Russell, always great. Ace Ventura, 16.
How is that 16?
I don't know, dude. 16 at domestically, 70 million. Star Trek Generations. I love Star Trek.
It's too much. I never got into the universe. There's too many offshoots.
I love Star Trek, but that was not a great movie. Wolf, bad movie, 65 million. That's Jack Nicholson. What the fuck's he doing there? Pulp Fiction, 62 million, number 19.
Heard of it?
Heard of it. Grumpy Old Men, The Specialist. I like The Specialist, bro.
Specialist is good.
Dumb and Dumber, number 22. Four Weddings and a Funeral, 23. Naked Gun, 33 and a third. The Little Rascals, and just missing, literally by like 300 grand, the top 25 is The Crow, number 26.
Little Rascals beat out The Crow?
Yes. That sucks, but it did.
I'm just making sure that I read that The Little Rascals beat out The Crow correctly.
Yeah, it did. But then, I mean, honestly, dude, this year is pretty wild. I'm just going to cherry pick a couple here. Pelican Brief, Natural Born Killers, which I don't really like, but it's interesting. The River Wild, Time Cop, Disclosure, Tombstone.
Wait, hold on. I have to point out something about Time Cop.
Okay.
Time Cop is the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, right?
Yes.
Is that the one where he's blipping through time and he ends up inside the UFC cage and there's like a three-way fight with Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn?
Yeah.
When are we going to get that?
That's for season 40 of the Prime Cut podcast. Keep in mind we're on season 3. Tombstone. I think we maybe need to talk Tombstone at some point.
Hey, I got to point this out as well. Tombstone came out that year, and I didn't realize this until I had looked at that list a little closer. Wyatt Earp, which was basically the exact same movie, came out the same year.
Yep. We need to get into that at some point. But yeah, there's some weird stuff with that. Drop Zone. Wesley Snipes movie, kind of like that one. There's some weird stuff here. So The Crow making a dent, almost top 25 box office wise. Let's talk about the origins of this movie, and that's really the comic book, right?
Yes.
I think I remembered some of this and forgot it, and then was like reinvigorated when I read about how this comic came to be, because it is kind of staggering, Greg. This guy, James O'Barr, he is an orphan who is a foster care child, which is horrific enough, I'm sure. And in the late 70s, he is engaged, and his fiance is killed by a drunk driver in a car accident. And this is like before he goes in, he's supposed to be going to the Marine Corps. This happens right before that. Goes into the Marine Corps. He's an illustrator. He does some like illustrations while he's on bases and stuff as like part of his work in the Marines, drawing manuals and stuff like that. And he just cannot get past this tragedy and reads about this murder, this double homicide in Detroit, about this couple that was killed over a $20 engagement ring. and he basically fuses these two things, these two real life things, one of which happens to him, into this creative outlet, and he creates this character and writes this story and just puts it on his shelf, and then he eventually gets someone to publish it, and it's The Crow, which is like unbelievable, honestly. Like, what the fuck? It's unbelievable.
It's not common. That type of thing doesn't happen.
Right.
He art imitates life, and
very poignant. Yeah, very true.
And he was able to create something out of it that actually became extremely mainstream and popular.
Right. Yeah, and there's interviews with him where he talks about like some of the things that his character Eric Draven, who is the Brandon Lee character, does in the comic, where he's like, he just like can't get past this crime that is committed, and he's kind of like going back to the scene of the crime and stuff. And he was like, that was me like expressing like I couldn't get over this tragedy. And this was like I was trying to help myself by writing this story and drawing this. And it's kind of touching, honestly, pretty crazy, like unbelievable.
I know that he was involved he was on set for the movie as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess originally it ends up, this becomes like, it gets published. It starts to be like a pretty culty type of comic book. It's not published by like a big distributor, Caliber Press, I think, which I've never really heard of. I've read this comic because of this movie. And yeah, they basically he gets to some sort of creative input. And he originally was like, I don't know about this Brandon Lee guy. Like, this isn't like a martial arts type of role. And he's the son of Bruce Lee. And then he meets him and he's like, oh, this guy's great. This is good. And he was like on set. One thing that I read that was super sad was that after this movie, and obviously Brandon Lee is killed towards the end of the filming, James O'Barr bought his mom with the proceeds, because he gets proceeds for this movie. Obviously, he's the creator and he was like an executive producer. He buys his mother a new car, and he donated every dollar he made to charity, because he was like, I can't.
Wow.
I don't want to make money off of this, like this tragedy, which is like, wow, holy shit. Pretty commendable. But interesting. So there's just so much to go on here. And
did you see the people that they had considered for the role of Eric Draven?
I saw the one that I remember seeing was Johnny Depp, I think, and Christian Slater maybe passed on it.
Yeah, Christian Slater passed on it. Johnny Depp was an option. They looked at Keanu.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I mean, I feel like at that point, if Johnny Depp was like considered for a role, Keanu was probably considered as well.
Yeah.
They're very similar characters.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those movies for me, and maybe I'm biased here because I love this movie. Once you think about somebody else, like Christian Slater, no. I know he was like a popular actor at this time.
He could have done it.
Stop it, dude. He's too sarcastic. This person needs to be tortured.
Don't you remember him in Robin Hood?
Will Scarlet? Yeah, he's like a wisecracker. Fuck, get out of here.
He was tortured.
He kind of was tortured. You know what? He was a little bit, and he's a pretty good actor. I just don't. There's just nobody else that can do this, and that's probably part of why I'm like, why would they even make sequels or remake this? Because it's like, this is, let alone this guy died on the set. He is perfect for this. He does it really well. Don't touch it. But people want to make money and whatever. So I think let's just talk about. So this is a revenge movie.
Oh, 100%. That is this movie. Revenge.
This is 100% a revenge movie. And there's things that I really like about how they go about that I want to talk to you about. And I think I'm going to blow your mind.
All right, Jeff. Slow down, Beavis.
I got to come hard in the paint, dude. I'm going to the whole hard here. Okay. What are like, all right, give me a couple of, I've got 3 or 4 revenge movies in my head.
And now you think that these are like your top picks for revenge movies, right?
I got 4.
Okay, I got 4 as well. I'll match you. Let's see. I
Okay.
got.
I tried to span like
Let's.
some
Could
time.
could, could you do 5, Joe?
Yeah, I could find 5.
All right, go for it. Lay one
My
on there.
first one is Rolling Thunder.
Okay.
Have you heard of this movie?
No.
God damn it. It's really good.
Who's in
Quentin
it?
Tarantino loves it. William Devane. It's from 19, I believe, 75.
Well, that's why, Joe.
Well, get on board with some old movies, dude. This is what I mean. You're going to have to start watching this stuff. Rolling Thunder. I'm looking it up right now. 1977, excuse me. This is another cult classic. Quentin Tarantino loves this movie. It is going to be a big part of his final 10th movie called The Critic. This movie is like he's like shooting scenes from it. I've heard. This is basically a Vietnam vet returns from POW camp. He gets awarded like a car and a bunch of money, and these gangsters come and they cut his hand off in a garbage disposal, and they kill his wife and kid. And a young Tommy Lee Jones is his buddy, and they go find all these guys and kill them. It's great. So that's my number 5.
Okay.
What's yours?
Tarantino pretty much does almost nothing but revenge flicks in so many ways.
Yep.
I mean, you could say Pulp Fiction was a revenge flick.
Sure.
You could say Django was definitely a revenge flick. Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah. What's your pick, though?
It'd be Kill Bill.
Yeah, it was my number 4. Great movie. Takes a lot of things from a lot of movies that I love and a lot of genres, all of the wuxia and the Shaw Brothers stuff to the Chanbara, like samurai stuff. Tons of that. It's fucking awesome.
It's good. Yes.
All right. My number 3 was Death Wish.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Very kind of similar to this a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Guy's family gets attacked and hurt, killed, assaulted, and he takes matters into his own hands. Spawned, there's like 10 Death Wishes and a remake. The original is still like pretty good. It's dated, but it's good. It's like an artifact.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. I think listen, this one I'm gonna be shocked if this is not on your list.
Okay.
It's pretty much the ultimate revenge flick, but it's not my number 1. RoboCop.
Damn, this wasn't on my list.
That's a good one, right?
Great call. Dude, totally.
Oh, that's a sick revenge flick.
Yeah.
He comes back as a fucking cop robot to avenge his death.
Dude, way to go. That's a great call. I was not thinking that at all. Excellent. Oh, damn, dude. Good job. My other ones, there's a couple other ones. The number 1 is, I guess, what are we at? 2?
Yeah. What's your number 2?
Old Boy.
Good one too.
Good, great fight. The hallway fight scene with the hammer is incredible.
The hallway fight scene with the hammer is iconic.
Yes. Great. It's a very layered and good movie. That was my number 2.
Joe.
Yeah.
When I thought about the revenge flicks, I was like, I got to mention the movie that actually made us become friends in the first place.
Lay it on me.
Mandy.
Yeah, baby. That was not my number 1, but I love it. I think we're going to cover Mandy.
Oh, it's got to happen. It's
one of my favorite movies.
That's not my number 1, though. That's not my number 1.
Well, my number 2. Well, I guess my number 2 was I don't. Maybe my list is wrong. I had Old Boy. Oh, A Time to Kill. I put A Time to Kill on this one.
Okay, I could see that. That makes sense.
A little more dramatic. I was trying to go for like some drama here.
My number 1, I was kicking around so many movie options that didn't even make the list. Howard the Duck. Steven Seagal's Marked for Death could have easily have been number 1.
I liked Marked for Death.
But Gangs of New York.
Wow.
That's the long game revenge flick.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh man. Unbelievable Bill the Butcher performance. Daniel Day-Lewis is incredible in that movie. He's incredible in every movie, but oh my god.
Yeah. A whoopsie daisy.
Dude, he tapped his eye. They put a glass eye for him to actually. He asked him to. He's like, I want to do it with the knife.
That's crazy.
Like, are you sure, man? He's like, yeah.
Method acting.
Seriously. My number one is kind of stupid. It's dumb that I picked it, but it's John Wick. John Wick.
Oh man, don't fuck with a man's dog.
I know. In this case, it's his fiance. In the case of the crow, but maybe just under the dog is the fiance. Dog one, fiance two.
Oh, that's right. He had a fiance. I think most people only remember the dog. They're like, the girl died.
No, I'm talking crow. Remember his wife died.
Oh, right. I thought you were talking about John Wick.
No. But it's spawning, it's spawned a lot of 4 sequels now, 3 sequels, I guess. Speaking of new movies, this Monkey Man movie, Dev Patel, have you seen previews for this?
I have not.
It's a revenge movie. I'm going to send you the trailer. I can't wait. It looks great. It premiered at South by Southwest, got great reviews. It looks awesome.
Are you sponsored by them? Are you collecting money without telling me?
Look, if there were ads, I would be shouting it. We don't have ads yet, but if people follow, like, and subscribe, maybe we will. Okay, let's talk about this movie. We've been dancing around it. We're, I don't know, half an hour into this podcast, but we've covered some peripherals. Basically, this is a pretty straightforward movie.
Yeah, right from the get-go of the movie, the thing I noticed immediately is that, and it's through the whole movie, and they did this with a contrast. They just turned it down, and they made it really dark and gritty.
Yes.
The whole movie feels that way right from the get-go.
Yeah, and I read that Alex Proyas, the director, wanted to shoot it in black and white because the comic is black and white. He was like, I want to shoot this in black and white, and the studio was like, no.
Yeah, Brandon Lee wanted to shoot it all in black and white as well. And then for the flashbacks, when he's flashing back to his fiance, that it would be in color. And I was like, that would be rad.
Cool idea.
There's movies that have like basically stolen this page from them. The biggest one that comes to mind is Sin City.
Yeah.
That one was super dark and gritty, and it's got the same kind of feel.
Yeah, and I think Robert Rodriguez had enough flex at that time to be like, I'm doing it this way. And the studio's like, all right. Our guy Alex, not the same.
No. They gave that guy iRobot.
Yeah, that's right. So this movie starts with a crime scene, and our character Eric Draven, played by Brandon Lee, is dead.
Yes,
and his fiance, who I don't know who plays her. I don't know that she has any lines. She may not have any lines, honestly. She is also dead. And I actually liked that they did it this way, where they don't show you their relationship except in flashbacks. So there's no build up to this. And the crime is honestly in flashbacks too. It's very stilted. And I think it lends some authenticity to it, because it's like, this isn't about what happened before. It's about the fact that this guy's dead and he's going to be coming back.
That sounds like a zombie flick.
It kind of is. I mean, this guy is raised from the dead. We get a voiceover from the child actor, who's not the finest. There's a little bit of she's not that great of an actress. I don't know her name. She's not that good in it.
Nope.
But basically what happens is, first of all, this movie is set in Detroit, and it's Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween, which I had never heard of until I saw this movie as a kid. And Detroit looks like a war zone.
I mean, I think Detroit still looks that way.
I don't know if it's quite this bad. I mean,
sorry for any Detroit listeners out
there. Any of our Michigan fan base, but it's like things are on fire, garbage everywhere. It's dark. It's wet. It just decrepit building. It looks awful. And we meet Ernie Hudson, who is great in this movie, as he is in everything. And he's a police officer who is like responding to this crime scene, which is Eric has been thrown out of his loft apartment, and his fiance has been raped and is on life support and doesn't survive the night, although she goes through like a very terrible ordeal where they're trying to save her for, like something like 30 hours, I think they mentioned, before she finally dies. And then we fast forward to it literally a year to the day later, and we get this crow sitting on the tombstone of Eric Draven, and the crow like taps on the tombstone, and this guy is risen from the dead. He comes out of the ground.
This is basically this feels like a religious movie.
There's definitely religion in it, for sure. And we kind of have this like this girl Sarah is kind of like our avatar a little bit. She's like a kind of like a latchkey kid who's kind of running around the city, and she's got a deadbeat mom who's a drug addict and who hangs out with these gangsters. And basically what happens is we find out that so Eric, he is resurrected. He goes back to the apartment, which is now like an empty, dilapidated, abandoned space. And he is receiving these flashbacks. And what we are learning through his flashbacks is this gang of four guys really, breaks in to their apartment. They kill him. They rape her. They throw him out of the window, and he's like reliving this all over again. Then we get the Cure song, "Burn," and
Right.
he applies the makeup because there's a mask there. He applies the famous crow makeup, which I don't know if you read this. The makeup is from James O'Barr. He modeled the makeup on Robert Smith's makeup for the Lullaby video.
Oh, go figure. That checks. That's on brand.
And here's the thing, Greg. I know you're a Cure guy. I love the Cure. They're like a top 5 band for me. So the fact that that's number one, models him after Robert Smith. All right, I'm already in. The Cure's playing when he's putting this on. Awesome. Like,
okay, this is making sense why you feel so passionate about this. The math is mathing. And,
yes.
And I'm seeing why you feel so passionately about this.
And he's like,
that scene that we get there, when he does the makeup, and this is the first time we get to see we find out that he has superpowers in a way.
Yeah, good call.
He walks up to that broken window that he got thrown out of, and he kind of, I don't know what he was doing exactly, but he grabs onto the ledge of the window where there's still broken glass, and he swings out of it. And when he swings back in, he looks at his hands, and you can see they're all bloody, and then they heal very quickly. He's got some super healing powers.
Yeah, and it's like a gymnast routine or something that we're going through there with him.
Yeah. He's working on the bars, whatever,
the rings or something. Yeah.
The other thing that I don't think we mentioned yet is, so obviously Brandon Lee dies in this movie, but this is, as far as I know, this is the first movie to ever have a post-mortem digital face swap. The technology didn't exist before this.
That's right.
And so this is actually the first scene that they used that in.
Yep.
So when he's walking up to the window, and if you watch it again, it doesn't quite look 100% right. His face looks a little glowy, and he's not turning, but he just walks straight up to the window, and that's where we get the first CGI, if you will.
You know who his stunt double was for that and for this movie?
I read, but I forgot.
Chad Stahelski, who directs all of the John Wick movies.
That's the connection to John Wick. Yeah,
veteran stuntman. Yeah,
I knew there was a connection to it.
Yep, which is just like another thing, like crazy cool stuff. So we learned you're right. He's got these like healing powers, and the crow is like his guide. Basically, he can see what the crow sees, and the crow is leading him to these perpetrators. Right, the 4 guys: Tintin, Fun Boy, T-Bird, and Skank.
Hey, don't forget about their boss,
Top Dollar, who dresses like the Count of Monte Cristo for some reason. I don't get what he's wearing. Crazy stuff. The cousin from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. He's great. Michael Wincott, great voice.
Yes, he's got that real gravelly voice. But the cast of villains in this, can we just run through those names one more time?
Yeah, let's do it. Tintin is our knife guy.
The knife guy.
Fun Boy is the guy that has the pistol tattooed on his hip.
I didn't even know he had that tattoo. That's very observant of you, Joe.
T-Bird, we got to talk about T-Bird because he's played by a veteran. Like, have you ever seen the movie The Warriors?
Yeah, David Patrick Kelly.
Warriors come out to play.
Yes. Michael Wincott and David Patrick Kelly are basically quintessential villains for movies. Like their entire career is basically, hey, we need a bad guy. And this one is just stacks up the bad guys.
Yep. Yeah. Put them both in the same gang. And then Skank is the last one. And he's just like a degenerate. We're all scumbags. And so now we get what to me is my favorite scene of the movie.
Is this the introduction of all the bad guys? Like when they
Well, we're kind of learning who they are through the flashbacks, and now the Crow takes him. We see Tintin, the black guy with the braids and the knives, who's like going to the pawn shop, pawning some shit off. Because these guys basically they terrorize Detroit, especially on Halloween night, the night before Halloween. They burn stuff, they break in. Detroit is just like this lawless, apocalyptic, crime-ridden landscape.
Well, we get a scene of them like hyping themselves up for Devil's Night.
That's right.
They're drinking at the bar. They're doing shots.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they're like not very advisable. They're like, you're laughing because you know what
crazy.
I'm saying.
It's insane.
They're doing shots and swallowing bullets.
Round. Like, what are we doing, guys?
Bro, that's gonna hurt twice so bad.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
insane.
Yes.
So the Crow basically now we're getting we got the Cure song when he's putting the makeup on. Sick.
I feel moody.
Feel moody and dark, goth, and Robert Smith understands me. Then
nobody can't speak except Robert Smith.
Then we get Eric Draven, who is not. So here's the thing. I want to go on a little side tangent for a second.
Sure.
Is the Crow? I don't think the Crow is him. He's Eric. The Crow is the Crow.
No, yeah, the Crow is like this damn bird that's like, go, kill people, go, murder.
These are the people you need to kill.
Yeah, the Crow's just basically
like his partner. Which, look, dude.
Yes.
If you got a cool animal and it's like your buddy in a movie, dog, bird on your shoulder, like I'm 2/3 of the way into it already. Like you could just be like, hey, this guy's got a cool dog. I'm like, all right, I already like this movie. What's it about?
I'm going to challenge that later, but I'll accept that answer for right now.
Okay.
So, there was something they cut out of this. I don't know if you're aware of the Skull Cowboy.
Yes, I read that.
Yeah, so there's actually scenes that were filmed with this character.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually a big part of the comic. Yes. But it also this is why the movie's a little bit confusing unless you've watched it multiple times. Because the Skull Cowboy is supposed to be associated with the Crow, and we're supposed to get some dialogue where the Skull Cowboy kind of is redirecting Eric Draven what to do.
Yeah,
but they kind of cut him out, and so there's some disconnect there with the Crow. That's why some people are like, "Is he the Crow?"
Yeah, exactly. He's not the Crow. The Crow is the Crow. But You're right. They did cut a bunch of that out. But basically what we're getting now is he's looking for these 4 people. He knows them. He remembers them. The Crow is helping him, and he is going to find them and kill all 4. And we got 4 different scenes with all these guys. And then it leads up to his confrontation with
Tintin.
Top Dollar, the final bad guy.
Oh, right.
The Tintin confrontation, we talked about this at the beginning. There's one scene in particular that stands out. For me, this is my favorite scene in the movie. I watch the scene all the time.
All right.
I love it.
I think my favorite scene might be a little different than yours. Go on.
Okay. I hope it's not some dumb shit, Greg.
Listen, the dumb scene in The Crow? What are you talking about?
Stop it. So we see this guy in the flashbacks. First of all, they do a good job of making you dislike these 4 guys. They're fucking pieces of shit. You're like, I want Eric to kill these guys.
Right.
Okay. We get an awesome scene of Brandon Lee running over the rooftops. The Crow is flying with him. Sick. Nine Inch Nails is playing. Doing some parkour, early parkour.
Before it existed. Nine Inch Nails for the soundtrack.
9 Inch Nails on the soundtrack. Again, I don't know how this gets better for a 12-year-old Joe. But so the Crow basically leads him to Tintin, the guy with the knives. And the scene that the shot that I really like is when he like drops off the building and he lands in that pile of trash and he gets up and Tintin's like standing over that burn barrel lighting a cigarette. And you see from Tintin's perspective, the camera looks through the flames and Eric is between 2 buildings and there's light behind him, but everything else is black. And you can see the light and the white of his face because he's wearing all black. I was like, that's a cool shot. There's not a lot of him in this movie as far as like cinematic, that was a good shot that this director got there.
Okay.
And so what I thought was crazy about this scene is like Tintin's just like, hey, we're gonna fight. I don't even know you. But he's like, I'm gonna kill you. He takes a knife out. He's like, why you all, what does he say to him? Like, why you dressed up, crackhead, or something?
Yeah.
So they fight.
I love how Tintin automatically just assumes that he's a crackhead because
Right,
he's
exactly.
dressed like that.
Right. So they fight, good fight. It's clear that Eric feels pain, but he's not affected by it. Like, because he's kind of like getting the worst of it for a second, and then he throws Tintin, and he's like, I want you to tell me about this couple that you killed. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you murdered this couple, you raped this woman. And the guy's like, oh yeah, I remember. And that's when
he says, tell me a story.
Tell me a story. Fucking cool. Then he like he kind of pushes him around. Tintin gets up and he's got the knives. He's like, this part is what I really like, obviously. What is his line is like, I'm going to introduce you to my friends we never miss. And he throws the first knife, and he ducks.
I'm like, that doesn't sound like it was a very true statement. You fucking liar.
Then he throws the second and he slaps it away. And you can tell he's like, oh shit, I'm better than this. Third knife, he does the clap catch right between his face, throws it back. And then we get another great line. Victims, aren't we all? Before he stabs him.
He basically turns Tintin into a butcher block.
Yeah, pincushion.
Yeah, with his own knives.
And he takes the coat.
Oh, that's right. This is where he gets the trench coat. He steals it from Tintin.
Yes. And so now we're just kind of like, we kind of go back and forth. We're following Ernie Hudson's character, the police officer, is kind of like tracking the fact that there's these murders now. And he has like some back and forth with his detective superior, which seems like a major prick.
Ernie Hudson is pretty much the only dialogue we get in this movie. If it's dialogue, it's got Ernie Hudson in it for the most part.
That's right. Yep. That's pretty true. Then we get the pawn shop scene.
This is where my favorite scene comes in.
This is my second favorite scene.
Yeah.
Take it away, dude.
Dude, the director of this movie just makes this pawn shop dude seem extra seedy unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And for some reason, so Eric Draven comes into the pawn shop, and we get a pretty famous line in this movie, or in the movie right here, where he comes in and he talks to this pawn shop guy, and he starts. You're gonna have to edit this part. You're gonna have to cut this part out, Joe. I fucked up.
He quotes that's fine, but he quotes the Raven.
Okay, this is the scene where he comes in, he quotes the Raven, and he says, "Suddenly I heard a tapping."
Yeah.
And rapping at my chamber door. And the pawn shop guy's like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You heard me rapping, right?" And he basically starts roughing this pawn shop dude up for information.
And the ring.
He's looking for a ring that was pawned by Tintin or the guys and the crew like a year ago. And he's basically trying to grab all the rings from this box, and he's like feeling their powers, but he's looking through these rings with his eyes closed. And he's like, no, not that one, not that one, not that one. Finally, he finds the ring.
Yep.
My favorite scene in this is when he takes the box of the leftover rings, he pours them into the end of the barrel of a shotgun.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And he covers the place in gasoline. And then he walks outside, and the pawn shop guy's talking shit to him. And he says, "Is that gasoline I smell?" And then you get this cool scene of him shooting the shotgun straight at the pawn shop as the pawn shop, this seedy owner, jumps out the back and the whole place explodes.
And you can see the rings, the way the director films it. You're looking down the barrel and you see Brandon Lee above the barrel, and the rings come at you.
Cool scene.
And it's very cool. It's very cool. He also takes a sick ass guitar.
That's right. He's like, since I'm gonna blow the place up, I'm gonna fucking steal a new axe, and I got some things to catch up on.
And he finds out like where these other guys are, and then we're just kind of going systematically through. He gets the next guy who's the girl The girl Sarah, her mother, is like a bartender, and she's hanging out with Fun Boy. Fun Boy is a heroin addict. We get that scene where he comes in to that apartment. He like expels the heroin from her arm,
Okay,
which was
so
fucking crazy.
we got this weird anti-drug moment from the dead rock star
Yeah.
where he yes, he basically reverses the heroin out of her arm by
Yep.
squeezing it there.
Well, he
There's
quotes that quote, that thing that he says, that I was like, that's got to be from somewhere, because he says, "Mother is the name for God in the lips and hearts of all children." I was like,
yeah,
that can't be in this screenplay just willy nilly. It's from this British Old English like author, William Makepeace Thackeray, and I was like, okay. And apparently, this guy is like very well known. Like, there was somebody else that he was compared to that I can't find now, but it was almost like a well known poet of that time, that if I said the name, you'd be like, oh yeah. They were like, he was just below that guy in like notoriety. So he's basically saying like, go take care of your kid, and then he stabs Fun Boy to death with all of his heroin needles. Another cool death.
he's giving them the death
That's right.
appropriate to them.
Exactly. And so, interestingly enough, that actor that plays Fun Boy, his name is Michael Massey. The only other thing I know him from is Seven. He's in Seven for a minute. He plays like a weird, like sex shop owner who gets interrogated by Morgan Freeman's character and Brad Pitt's character. He tragically is the actor that pulls the trigger that kills Brandon Lee, and he has never watched the movie, and like took like 2 years off from acting. I was like, I don't know that I could, if I want to like continue.
Yeah,
Just from like no fault of his own. He's just doing his job, right?
he only ever did one interview about it, and I found the segment. It's like a 5-minute clip, and he talks about it. He's like, I mean, poor dude. He's like forever living in the shadow of this, like where people always want to talk to him about that. But he's like, that's
Right.
like the last thing in the world I want to talk about. I shot a dude.
Right.
I read about what happened, and there was just so much negligence
Yes.
in the way that this all happened. So, from what I understand, is that gun that killed Brandon Lee, the one that Michael Massey uses, it was used in a previous scene. And in the previous scene, they had put actual, basically, they called them, I think they called them squibs.
Yes.
They were like fake rounds to make the gun look like it had bullets in it.
Right.
But whenever they shot it, the bullet actually has like a little bit of powder in it, and so like it jammed the bullet into the gun itself.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, they went and put blanks in it, not knowing that other bullet was still lodged in the barrel.
Right. Both of those are wrong. Like, they shouldn't be using the squib the way, from what I read, the way they used it, that was incorrect. And then they didn't check it and clear it. And then you're right, threw blanks in, and then go on.
I believe they sent the armorer home early as well. Like,
Yep.
hold on, wait a minute. So can we just say the guy that's in charge of these guns that are real guns, they sent him home early before we're going to use them in the scenes?
That's right. Yeah.
That's just gross negligence.
Yeah. So there's basically a projectile in the barrel that they don't know about, with enough gunpowder to launch the projectile from the blank that they're now using. They pull the trigger, the blank goes off, the projectile goes out of the bullet, and it lodged in his spine, through his stomach into his spine, from what I read.
Yeah, and apparently they were filming this scene, and Brandon Lee falls down forward because he gets shot in the stomach. And they thought that everything was a go. He was just acting. And they didn't realize that it was actually, there was something wrong until a pool of blood started to form.
Yep.
Which is crazy. So they filmed it, and apparently the footage existed until they were done with the investigation, and then the studio destroyed all evidence of the film. So it's never seen the light of day. There's a lot of this is where you kind of go into some speculation that a lot of people go down, and There was a lot of people thought that there was a connection to Bruce Lee and his war with the triads, and this is before the internet was really
Mm-hmm.
so there was just all kinds of crazy stuff that went along with this, but wild.
Wild. Yeah, he was 28 when he died, and his father was 33. Both taken way too soon, obviously. Tragic, and it doesn't overshadow this movie, but it definitely lurks kind of in the background, especially because this movie's kind of dark, and that doesn't help. But basically, so he's killed Tintin, he's killed Fun Boy, T-Bird, our guy from the Warriors. He drives him off a pier.
Hold on, before you get to that, you're skipping over a pretty important scene with his guitar.
Oh yeah. Okay. How could I forget? He's soloing on the rooftop.
So that guitar that he stole from the pawn shop, I was like, why did he take the guitar? Like, this seems unnecessary. But it was so that Eric Draven in his life was a musician.
Yeah.
He goes onto the rooftop and he's just shredding his guitar, playing a solo. And then when he's done, he just smashes the guitar.
Great. He's tortured, dude. He's tortured.
I'm so tortured here by guitar solo.
He's reliving this horrible night.
I'd be pissed if I lived below that. And I was like,
very true.
What the fuck? Is there some homeless dude in a trench coat playing the guitar on my roof?
That's true.
It's ridiculous.
That's true.
In upstate city. This is Detroit.
He does have another good line when he's talking to Ernie Hudson's character, because after the pawn shop, Ernie Hudson's like he arrives and he's like, don't move. And he's like, what if I move? He's like, I'm already dead. He's like, move and you're dead. He's like, how about if I'm dead and I move? Which is clever. But then he brings up the murder, right? He's like, you remember this murder that happened? Right. And I don't know how he gets to the line, but he basically says something. Ernie Hudson asked him something. He's like, they're already dead. They just don't know it yet. Which is like another pretty dope line. Got some good lines here, Greg. Victims, aren't we all? Is that gasoline I smell? They're already dead, aren't they? Or they're already dead. They don't know it yet. It can't rain all the time. 4 great lines.
I'd say that it can't rain all the time is probably the most iconic line from this movie.
Yeah. Not my favorite, but it is.
And it's what Eric's character, or Eric Draven, says to the little girl when she's complaining about the rain.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he's kind of like hanging out. Like he's walking around, he's hiding in alleys. He's on the rooftop with the crow perched on his head or perched on his shoulder, which is cool. A lot of cool iconography. He's like a mix of Batman and Daredevil.
And this crow has to constantly fly around and like basically like, oh God, and like, hey, stupid, get back to work. We've got people to kill. Quit playing guitar solos on the roof.
He's like, I need a break.
He's all, we've got shit to do, dude. You're on the clock.
Well, so now we're down to one guy left, Skank, and he's like, I got to get some help. So he goes to Top Dollar, who's our big bad.
Wait, you can't skip over T-Dog.
T-Dog.
Is that his
T-Bird?
T-Bird.
We talked about it. He got burned up on the pier.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, that was another CGI scene as well when he's in the back of the car.
Yes. Yeah. And he draws the circle, or he draws the diagram of the crow in gasoline and then lights it on fire. Fucking cool.
It's pretty fucking impressive, if I'm being honest. Like, if I gave you gasoline and told you to do that, that'd take you all day.
It looked like a big blob. You're like, hey, can we move this? This doesn't look good. We got to move it down the road.
So yeah, Skank's our last guy.
Skank's our last guy, and everyone's kind of figuring, like, now we're like, okay, Ernie Hudson knows that it's Eric Draven. Sarah knows that he's alive, back from the dead. Top Dollar doesn't know, but he's like, something's going on with this guy, and he's got a top henchman, and they kind of he's also got a half sister who's his girlfriend, which is kind of disturbing. I don't know that we needed that twist.
It's weird, unnecessary.
Don't need it, but they basically figure out that. So Eric goes to the gang's like hideout, and there's a bunch of guys there. They're all loaded up. And Skank's there because Top Dollar has realized, oh, he's just going for these 4 guys. And literally, he walks in, cool scene, Greg, walks in, jumps on the table, sits down, fucking cool.
This feels a lot like the originator of the scene that we got whenever Heath Ledger's Joker goes to all the bad guys and they're all gathered in the room.
Yeah, good
and
call.
He walks right into the room.
Good
it's almost like they stole that scene from this movie.
I will say this. I did read that Heath Ledger, the scars coming off of his corners of his mouth in the Dark Knight for the Joker were inspired by the Crow's makeup. He liked that. He's like, yeah. So he's basically like, he makes it clear. He's like, I don't care about anybody here except for that guy, Skank. He's the last one on my list. He's the only one responsible who's alive. I need to kill him. And that's when they're like, nope. And so there's like huge gun battle. Of course, he fucking kills Skank and he gets away. And he's like, I'm done. It's over. And this is what I meant when I said I really liked the fact that this is like small scale. He's not saving the world. He's not a superhero or like a crime fighter or anything like that. He's like, I am back to kill these 4 guys and then I'm going back in the ground. And he's like, my job is done. I'm done with this. I did it. I'm going back into my grave. And he does, but then he finds out that the girl gets kidnapped, Sarah, the child. And they kidnap her. Top Dollar kidnaps her because he knows that he's not going to let her get killed. And this leads to our final showdown in the church.
This is really discombobulated.
Yeah, like, it loses some steam here.
Oh, it absolutely does. Most people kind of forget about this final scene because the movie should have culminated to this, but it does a poor job of it.
Agree.
And we get Top Dollar. All of a sudden, he's wielding swords like he's Leonardo from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, weird.
Wait, what? I guess Top Dollar is a swordsman. Is he a samurai?
No build up for that. You're right.
No backstory for that at all.
We do find out that his girlfriend, sister, basically correctly guesses that if they can get the crow, if they can hurt the crow, he won't be immortal anymore. And they clip the crow, they wound him. And then Eric's like, shows up. He's like, what's up, dude? Like, I'm going to fuck you up. And Top Dollar shoots him in the shoulder. And he's like, oh shit, I'm not immortal anymore. So now he's like on his own. He's just a regular dude. We get a big fight. The crow claws the girlfriend's eyes out, which was awesome. Great scene.
He basically Hunchback of Notre Dame's her.
Yeah.
In the bell tower, and she grabs onto the bell and like clangs in before she falls to her death.
Yeah, both eyes ripped out. Pretty cool. So then we get Eric and Top Dollar fighting.
Where are they fighting, Joe?
Top of this Gothic church, dude.
It's the only place that makes sense.
Where else? In the rain at night.
In the rain at night.
And we get a little foreshadowing, dude, because we see the gargoyles and the water streaming out of the gargoyle. Gargoyles are cool. And the fact that they used to do them for like downspouts and stuff, it's pretty sad we don't do that anymore, but whatever.
I got to say that I wish that more homes came with gargoyles.
Yeah, can we just have those as an option? Right.
I'd be like, hey, that place has got gargoyles. I'm interested.
High on my list. But basically, so I liked this part because we skipped over a little bit of exposition where Eric goes to see Ernie Hudson, and we learn that Eric can through the crow can like feel and see other people's pain. And he touches Ernie Hudson's arm because we find out that Ernie Hudson stayed with his fiancée Shelley the whole time that she was trying to survive in the hospital, because hopefully if she woke up, she could give him some leads on an investigation, and she dies. She has this horrible death, 30 hours or whatever. And Eric is basically transferred this pain and anguish from what Ernie Hudson saw. He can now feel that as an experience. And that comes in handy at the end of this because he's kind of losing. He's now mortal. He's kind of losing to Top Dollar. And at the end, he basically is like, he grabs Top Dollar. He's like, here's 30 hours of pain all at once that you visited upon this woman. And Top Dollar like freaks the fuck out, and he falls off the steeple onto a gargoyle, which is now his mouth running red with Top Dollar blood. Fucking awesome. Doesn't get much better.
So metal.
Very metal. And then he's done. That's it. He's like, I'm going back.
He's like, I'm done. I'm clocking out. He goes back to the grave.
Yeah.
He basically falls in the grave, and then the ghost of Shelley shows up with dead people breath to whisper some things to him.
Yep. Reunited with her in the afterlife, but he's no longer this Avenger. He's done. He's not staying around, which I like that they didn't make it like to be, Eric's going to be wandering around killing people, killing bad guys. He's like, no, that's not what this is about. I liked that. I don't know. You're looking at me like, whatever, man.
It's okay.
All right. I'm really trying here. So, all right. Favorite scenes. I think we kind of hit them. Mine's the Tintin showdown. I YouTube that all the time. It's
yeah,
cool.
Mine's the rings and the shotgun with the Chomo pawn shop owner.
Yeah, good stuff. And that's good. That pawn shop owner is in a lot of stuff. And he's got some funny lines. He's got some good lines there. Like some of his insults are like pretty funny. He's like, "You're nothing but street grease," and that's when he blows him with a shotgun. He's pretty good. That everybody who has watched some amount of '90s movies, if you haven't seen this movie, when you see the pawn shop owner, you'll be like, "That dude, oh yeah, I've seen him in 10 things."
He's always something like that.
Yeah. So we've hit on Brandon Lee's death. We've hit on favorite scene. Favorite quote. I like victims, aren't we all, dude? That's a good fucking quote. And it's like a smash cut, and he brings the knife up, victims, aren't we all? And then the knife goes down and it smash cuts to another scene where like they're in a nightclub, like a bar. Loud music.
The club scene that you're talking about is where they show the band My Life with the Thrill Kill Cole playing live.
Mm-hmm. Good song.
Yeah.
Double feature pairing. I got an easy one for me.
All right, go.
Rapid fire. If you want to ride the Brandon Lee train, check out Rapid Fire. If you're an action movie fan, if you're a martial arts fight scene fan, really, really good stuff. He's clearly a actual martial artist. The movie realizes it and they let him do good stuff. It's good.
I'd have to say the first John Wick.
Good call. Yeah. Okay. Kind of like a smaller version of John Wick, right? More central. He's really interested in just killing the people that kill his dog. That's a good pairing. I like that.
They're very similar movies. Let's get some revenge on the menu this evening, ladies and gentlemen.
And both movies do such a good job of making you really hate the people that he's hunting down.
Dude, dog killers, I hate them all day.
Hate them. Yeah. And along with rapists, right? Pretty easy to hate. And they make these guys like scummy. Oh, they're fucking pieces of shit. Trivia. I really think we've hit a lot of the trivia as we've gone. There's honestly more. We could do a podcast just on the Crow trivia. Like not even talking about the movie. There's so much.
Yes.
We talked about the soundtrack, critical response. So I think that we've really discussed like the cult aspect and kind of like what people think. I am looking up right now because I read this and then I didn't save it. Roger Ebert, who's like our, premier movie person, reviewer. What do you think he gave us out of 4?
Man, I don't put a lot of stock in that guy's ratings.
Okay.
I'd say he's probably gave it a 2 when he saw it.
3.5 out of 4, Greg.
What does he know?
He knows a lot. He's good. He makes some. You know what? There's some things he says about movies that I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. But he likes the technical aspect and the production values of this. So apparently this movie uses a lot of miniatures, which is cool. All of the cityscape scenes where they show like either the city burning, that's all miniature done, which I thought was interesting and pretty cool at the time. Like you can't just computerize that. And they were like, okay, we're just going to make it a miniature thing. He kind of likes the Batman, like noir version of this. He also calls out the soundtrack. So Raj likes this, man. Roger Ebert, our probably most prominent film critic, the last 50 years or so. 3.5 out of 4. Greg, what do you have to say to that?
I would say, if you've never seen The Crow, you have to at least watch it so that you could say you've seen it. And you could say if you like it, or you could say, no, I don't like it. Redeeming qualities of this movie.
Yeah.
Kick-ass soundtrack.
Yep.
Dark and gritty.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some cool one-liners. Dislikes. It's a little hard to follow if you've never seen it before. It can be a little jumbled. And it can be a little cheesy.
Yeah, there's some cheese here. I think it's very obvious why this movie is a cult classic and why people love it. And you mentioned a lot of the reasons. The other reason I would add is that Brandon Lee is really charismatic. Aside from his death, which I'm sure draws some people to this movie, but you can tell that he's good in this, but you can tell wow, he would have been a promising actor on some level. I don't know that he would be George Clooney or Brad Pitt, but you're like, man, handsome dude, a lot of charisma, seems really likable and captivating on screen. Probably would have been a pretty big deal. And this movie would have launched him, I think.
He would have blown up. He would have been huge in the 90s.
Yeah. I agree. Final thoughts. This is definitely prime cut. It's a flawed gem for sure. Really, what I think now, tell us what you think. Reach out, DM us on Instagram, prime_cut_podcast. Hit us up on Gmail, primecutpodcast@gmail.com. Did you like it? Is Greg dumb for not liking this movie? What's your favorite scene? I mean, I still, honestly, dude, I probably YouTube the Tintin confrontation and the pawn shop scene once every 3 months. Just throw it on 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
I want people listening to chime in and let us know if we should be having an intervention for Joe and the amount of times he's YouTubing this scene unnecessarily.
It's not the whole movie, but
this scene.
Dude, when he claps the knife and throws it back, pretty fucking awesome. Come on, man.
It's cool.
Let yourself go a little bit, Greg.
That's a cool scene.
All right.
It's cool.
Okay. You got to suspend your belief a little bit sometimes. I'm willing to accept the flaws here. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. This movie's not perfect. It's flawed. But there's some things here that are really good.
It has its moments for sure.
Yeah, it has its moments. Okay. Next.
Joe, what are we watching next?
We went back and forth on this one. And you picked one of my favorite movies by one of my favorite directors, starring one of my favorite actors.
Talking about some Pork Chop Express.
Pork Chop Express, baby. Big Trouble in Little China, 1986, I believe. Let's double check that. I think it's 1986. 1986. God, yeah, I'm right. John Carpenter, Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall. This movie is great. It's funny. It's weird. It was a complete bomb when it came out and is now hugely celebrated.
Oh, it's a cult classic.
I can't wait to talk about it. One of my favorites. I think you can stream it for free on Amazon Prime. If you have a Prime account, I believe it is free to stream. I think. Don't quote me, but I think it is. So we will be going into that on our next episode. Don't forget, follow, like, subscribe, all the nice things. Put a star down next to it on your podcast app. All that stuff helps us get exposure. Exposure is good for this podcast. Do your homework, watch Big Trouble in Little China, and we will talk to you next time. Greg, it's been a pleasure. Adios.